Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to crack open some really compelling sources and pull out the most valuable insights for you. Today, we're plunging into the world of J. Paul Getty, the legendary oil tycoon.
Right, who was, for quite a while, considered the richest man in America.
Exactly. And we're looking specifically at his book, How to Be Rich. It's surprisingly direct, almost timeless stuff.
Yeah, and it's important to say up front, this really isn't one of those, fleeting get-rich-quick guides. Not at all. Getty's book offers a much deeper look. It's about the principles he actually used to build incredible wealth.
So less about fast wins.
Much less. It's more about deep-seated discipline, a certain kind of courage, and honestly, a very strategic way of thinking about risk, all drawn from his own pretty remarkable life.
Okay, so our mission for this deep dive, then, is to pull out the core, actionable ideas from Getty's thinking. We really want to focus on how you can understand these things, maybe apply them to create real value, lasting wealth, sort of cut through the noise you hear everywhere. So look, whether you're thinking about starting a business, maybe you're a student, or maybe you're just, curious about how massive wealth actually gets built and kept, then this deep dive is definitely for you.
Okay.
Okay, so let's unpack this a bit. Who was J. Paul Getty, really? I mean, we know he was born back in 1892, and kind of incredibly, he made his first $1 million in oil by the time he was just 23.
Yeah, 23. It's pretty staggering.
And he didn't just stay put, did he? He took his operations global.
Right. Built this huge empire, and he got quite a reputation along the way.
For being a fierce negotiator, wasn't it?
Oh, definitely. Fierce is the word. But what often catches people off guard about Getty is this stark contrast. You have the monumental wealth on one side. Billions. And on the other, these notoriously frugal personal habits. He was famous for being incredibly thrifty day to day.
Right, the Letha payphone story, maybe.
Exactly, things like that. And his book, How to Be Rich, it's interesting. It actually started out as a series of magazine articles back in the 60s. And that origin's kind of key, I think, because it frames his advice not as some, abstract theory he cooked up, but as real, hard-won lessons he was sharing. And he didn't sugarcoat it. He laid out the realities of building wealth.
So, not trying to sell a dream, more like a blueprint.
Precisely. A blueprint based on what he actually did.
When I first read about the frugality, I kind of pictured him like counting paperclips or something.
Yeah, that's the image.
But then I got to his core philosophy, and it completely shifted how I thought about wealth building. It wasn't really about saving pennies, was it?
Bro.
It tapped into something much bigger, more fundamental.
So that's exactly it. He wasn't just advocating for saving money. In fact, he argued pretty strongly you cannot simply save your way to being rich.
Really? He said that explicitly?
Oh, yeah. True wealth, he believed, comes from actually creating, leading, and crucially, owning businesses, things that generate income consistently, which, raises a really important question for all of us, I think. What does it really mean to own something? Is it just having your name on a title?
Or is it something more?
Right. Is it about control? Is it about actually creating the value?
Yeah, that famous quote, didn't it? It gets right to the heart of this.
You mean the one about the meek?
Yeah. The meek shall inherit the earth.
Yeah.
But not the mineral rights.
That quote is just so sharp, so telling.
It really is. And for Getty, mineral rights wasn't just literal oil fields. It was a symbol.
Symbolizing what exactly?
True control, owning the underlying resource, the thing that generates the value, not just getting a cut or owning land without the rights to what's underneath.
So owning the source of the wealth.
Exactly, the core asset. For him, owning tangible assets, whether it was oil fields or companies or key investments, that was the only real path, the non-negotiable route to lasting wealth. Okay, so if ownership is the guiding principle, the North Star, how did he translate that into actual, day-to-day actions? What are the practical things he did, the principles he lived by to build and keep that empire going?
Right. Because he wasn't just about theory. He distilled decades of experience into, what I see as 5 really foundational pillars. Pillars for building any significant enterprise, really. The first one, and maybe the most critical, think like an owner.
Okay. What does that mean in practice?
It means taking full, complete responsibility for the results, no blaming circumstances, no excuses. And it means relentlessly studying your industry, knowing it cold.
So a long-term view, not just showing up.
Exactly. It's about a mindset. Looking at the big picture, not just acting like an employee punching a clock. It's about internalizing the success or the failure as your own.
That's interesting because, today with the gig economy or people in huge corporations, how do you think like an owner if you don't actually own the company?
Well, it's absolutely about internalizing that responsibility, like you said, but also seeking ways to have direct impact, maybe more control, even within a bigger structure. It means treating every decision, every dollar spent, as if it were your own money on the line.
Oh, okay.
And Getty would say you have to study your industry because a real owner understands the entire landscape they're playing in.
Got it. What's number 2?
Number 2, and this is the one that often surprises people given his wealth, control costs relentlessly.
The frugal billionaire strikes again.
Right. But it's fascinating how he did it. He is apparently obsessed with efficiency, would personally review expense reports line by line.
Seriously, line by line.
But that's the legend. He just tolerated zero waste. He believed business frugality wasn't optional. It was non-negotiable.
Even when things were booming, during rapid growth.
Especially then, maybe. It's not just about cutting back when times are tough. It's about eliminating anything that doesn't add real value. Always.
When I first heard that control costs relentlessly, I pictured him turning off lights in the mansion.
Right. Saving pennies.
But it sounds like it's a much deeper business philosophy. Have you seen modern companies that really embody that kind of extreme, almost obsessive efficiency, even when they're super successful?
Oh, absolutely. Think about some companies known for lean operations, even as they scale like crazy.
Okay.
They've basically adopted Getty's principle, constant vigilance against waste. Waste is seen as like an erosion of potential profit, not just some minor line item.
So building efficiency into the DNA from day one.
Exactly. Okay, third, take calculated risks.
Calculating not just any risks.
Keyword. Getty was no blind gambler. He meticulously calculated the odds, studied markets, opportunities in painstaking detail before making a move. He believed wealth comes to those willing to risk capital, sure, even their reputation sometimes, but only after doing extensive homework. Real preparation.
Right.
He had that famous line, formula for success, rise early, work hard, strike oil.
Rise early, work hard, strike oil. I like that.
That's great, isn't it? Because it's not just about hustle. It highlights that blend.
Right.
The diligent preparation, the hard work.
The homework.
The homework, exactly. And then, yes, that element of luck or timing that sometimes helps you hit it big, the strike oil part. But for Getty, you had to position yourself for that luck through all the preparation first.
So when he says calculated risks, it sounds worlds away from just, throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks.
Oh, completely.
How did he balance the hard numbers, the market analysis, with maybe the softer stuff, like intuition or just a gut feeling about a deal?
That's really the art of it, isn't it? He was definitely a numbers guy. But his calculation wasn't just spreadsheets. It involved a deep, almost intuitive grasp of human nature, market psychology, even political landscapes.
Okay. So experience played a huge role.
Decades of it. His intuition wasn't just a random guess. It was like an informed insight built on years of observation.
So the strike oil part isn't just literal oil.
No, it's about positioning yourself for that breakthrough win because you did everything else right first. Luck favors the prepared, basically.
Makes sense. What's number 4?
Fourth, and this one feels incredibly relevant today, build a reputation.
Integrity, trust.
Exactly. Getty really emphasized this. He believed integrity and your reputation are ultimately worth far more than money. Back then, big deals were often sealed on trust alone. A handshake. Your name, your word, that was your single greatest asset.
Being known as reliable, fair.
Honorable. Yeah.
Okay. But the business world is so different now than the 60s. We've got social media, 247 news cycles. Is building a reputation still the same game?
Yeah.
Or has the digital age made it way more complex? Maybe things Getty couldn't have even imagined.
That's a great question. I think it's both more complex and even more critical today.
More critical. Why?
Because the visibility is amplified massively. A single mistake, a single ethical lapse can go viral instantly and destroy decades of trust.
Right. The stakes are higher.
Much higher. So while Getty operated in a world of, personal calls and relationships, the core message, guard your name, guard your reputation, it's arguably even more vital now when everyone has a potential megaphone.
Yeah.
The principles haven't changed. Honesty, reliability, follow through. But how you maintain it in public view has.
Okay. And the last one, number 5.
And finally, number 5, a point that sometimes gets missed. Enjoy what you build.
So it wasn't all just work and numbers.
No, Getty wasn't about just hoarding money like Scrooge McDuck. He genuinely believed you should use wealth to live a full life, and importantly, to support things like the arts and to create a lasting legacy.
Like the Getty Museum.
Exactly. Building the Getty Museum was a huge statement, wasn't it? Sharing beauty and culture with everyone. It speaks volumes about seeing wealth as having a purpose beyond just accumulation.
So, bringing this all together, what does this mean for you listening today? Why should a book from the 60s by an oil tycoon of all people still resonate, especially when the world feels so different, so fast-paced, so digital? It's easy to get caught up in the latest trend.
Well, I think unlike a lot of modern self-help books, which can sometimes focus only on mindset or kind of abstract ideas.
Yeah, feel-good quotes, but not much action.
Right. Getty's book is just deeply, fundamentally practical. He blends his own stories, his anecdotes, with really concrete business advice. You don't just walk away feeling motivated. You walk away with actual potential blueprints,
Yep.
like those 5 lessons we just talked through.
Things you can actually do.
Exactly. It tells you what to do, not just how to feel. It sort of demystifies wealth creation, strips away the common excuses, and presents it as a result of specific, deliberate actions.
And that's why people are still reading it,
Oh.
60-plus years later.
I think that's exactly why it cuts through the fluff.
Which is why this deep dive, and probably the book itself, is really ideal for you if you're an entrepreneur needing that solid foundation.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe a business student looking for strategies that actually work in the real world beyond the textbook.
Right.
Or really just anyone who's tired of superficial advice and wants proven, substantial ways to think about building wealth. And just as important, keeping it. So as we wrap up this deep dive, let's just remember Getty's really powerful message here. Wealth isn't just about getting lucky.
No.
It's about unwavering discipline. It's about a deep commitment to that idea of ownership. And it's about taking relentless but calculated action.
Yeah. And maybe for you, listening, here's something to think about. How can you start applying Getty's core principle of thinking like an owner right now in your current life, your job, your projects, even if you don't technically own a business? Or maybe where in your own work or life could you practice more calculated risk-taking? Not just jumping in, but really doing the homework first, weighing the odds like Getty did.